Kia ora, I'm Erin J. Doyle. Welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to be talking about my poem Melanin. I have previously uploaded a video with that poem, so if you haven't seen that one, follow the links and go check it out and then come back because I'm going to be talking on the assumption that you're aware of the poem. So, Melanin is a poem about racism and to a considerably lesser degree colorism, but mostly racism. And it took me 4 or 5 years to write. What I started out with was 2 ideas, both of which were lists of things which I do or do not experience because of how frickin' white I am. And it was fairly obvious to me that these 2 things needed to be one thing because there was a nice contrast, but they were also really strongly linked by the really white skin. That was the point of the 2 lists. From the beginning I knew that I wanted to start off with just listing a whole bunch of jokes about how white I am so that it would be like this relaxing funny time, and then I could just be like, message, after I got people totally relaxed and just laughing about, you know, this glow-in-the-dark white chick. So those decisions were easy. The fact that it had to be the things I do and don't experience in one poem, and the fact that it had to start off with a whole bunch of jokes. Those were easy decisions to make. What was harder, and the reason the poem took so long for me to write, was deciding what to do with the last half of the poem and the things that I do not experience because of how white I am. I wanted to make sure I did it as well as I could. And I wanted to make sure I touched on multiple different issues. And while I was doing the thinking and the drafting and the maybe this idea, maybe that idea thing over the years, more horrific stuff happened. While I was working on this poem, there was a horrific terrorist attack in my country targeting the Islamic community. While I was writing this poem, there was a surge in anti-Asian violence because of the pandemic. While I was writing this poem, George Floyd was murdered. I had so many new horrificnesses coming in to my thought process while I was trying to write this poem. And so there are many discarded stanzas, some of which directly address these events and the way in which I was safe. I think the final poem actually isn't as all-encompassing as I would have liked it to have been. There isn't anything about Asian hatred in there, and that's something that I really tried to work in. I tried to talk about the stereotyping around the Asian community in Western countries, and I just couldn't get it in. It was a struggle. I spent a very long time trying to do that. I definitely wanted to have something about head coverings in there. It was a really difficult thing to write, just in terms of knowing specifically what to say and what images to draw on and how explicit I wanted to be in referring to current events. And I eventually settled on being fairly vague and not referencing specific events because I wanted to ensure a longevity to the piece. So I tried not to specifically reference these current events that were inspiring the poems so that it would still work. when those events have been buried under the avalanche of additional horrific, unforgivable events. So that was part of the reason it took a really long time to write this poem. There was also an issue around how to finish it. The final stanza of this poem is the one that gave me the most trouble, because I just couldn't figure out what topic or what image to leave my reader with. Your final stanza is the one that's going to linger. It had to be the most important thing, and I felt like if I picked an experience from anywhere, like any group or ethnicity, and went like, okay, this is the one that I'm going to linger on, that felt like prioritizing suffering somehow. It felt like an inappropriate call for me to make, and it felt impersonal. And I thought, well, maybe given that I started the poem talking about the yes I do experiences, perhaps that's how I should finish it, by bringing it full circle and talking about something that I do experience, and that is people questioning or discrediting my claim to Māori lineage because of the colour of my skin. But I didn't want to make that entirely the point. That was something that I experienced, but I didn't want to make the poem about, oh yes, but secretly I'm brown on the inside and oh, I suffer as well. No. The point is that I don't. And so if I meet a Māori person and they're like, oh, you say that you're Maori, but clearly, well, I can't really take it too personally or blame them. So that's where that stanza comes from. It does actually refer to a specific incident that did totally happen. I was introduced to a Māori student as a member of the Māori faculty that he could come to, and he's just like literally laughed, and my colleague had a go at him for being racist. But you know, the kid had a point. You know, if he was suffering or struggling with something because he was being discriminated against because of the colour of his skin, I can sympathise, I can try to help, but it's not something I have experienced. So I'm probably not the person that he should come to. In that situation, I'm more of an ally. I can be like, well, you know, I can try to help, but I can't say, oh yes, I've been there too, you know? So I eventually decided to put that in, like I said, to just try and bring the poem full circle. And yes, it does mean that the beginning and the end of the poem is all about me, a white person, and then I'm saying the poem is about everybody else. But that felt like a more complete structure than ending on a topic that wasn't connected to me in any way. And like I said, it meant that I wasn't sort of picking a topic and saying this one is special, cling to it, and I was using a topic where I'm acknowledging that because of my whiteness, I might be aware of what other people experience because of racism, but I am separate from it regardless of my heritage. And if a person is just like, you know, I'm not going to talk to you about this, you can't sympathize with me, you know, I'm angry at white people, what have you, that's fair enough, and I'm not going to take that super personally, even if it sucks, because I have not been in those shoes. So that's this poem. As always with my poetry, there is no metaphor, there's no abstract ideas, we're pretty straightforward. I tried to keep it that way because A, that's my style, but B, I didn't feel this was a topic that required frilly language. This was a topic that needed to be straight to the point. No room for interpretation, because if you've got room for interpretation, you have room for misinterpretation. So I wanted to keep it very direct. I have now been talking for 28 minutes because I have gone on 1,000 side tangents. We'll see how useful this video is in the meantime. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, leave a comment below to let me know what you think or ask me any questions, and I'll see you next time. Bye!